If you're an Airbnb host, you need to stop doing this because you are probably leaving a lot of money on the table and not tapping into an opportunity that can reduce the amount of turnovers, reduce the amount of headaches, and even triple your revenue and profit by implementing this strategy, by understanding the difference between B2B versus B2C. Now, I've been able to help hundreds of investors across the nation do this time and time again without having to go in another market, without that spend six figures on, again, just design, just to be in the top percentile in the marketplace. Because let's be honest, that's what it takes these days to at least be top in the marketplace to make the most as the Airbnb host that you are. And again, that's if you're not an Airbnb host that's doing it as a hobby, but you actually want to do this as a business. Keyword B. So, who am I? My name is Ruben Kanya. I am your temporary housing specialist, where I specialize in helping investors land profitable insurance contracts nationwide. And what I wanted to display to you in this video is that there is a fine difference between what you're currently doing today if you're an Airbnb or short-term rental host versus what you can do tomorrow, because it's what we actually did. Let me tell you a little something. My wife and I got into Airbnb, and when we got into Airbnb, we were in one market. And when we were in the one market, which is Georgia, we actually experienced not as high margins as some folks were getting in states like Florida. And so we looked at our homes and we're like, well, we don't have these pools, we don't have all these fancy things. So how can we actually generate just as much, if not more, than those folks who are in those markets that are focused on experience? And let's be honest, with experience comes what we call high dollars. They come at a cost in order for you to have the experiences, the jacuzzis and the hot tubs and the pools and the pickleball courts and all that. That still works to this day. Airbnb is not saturated. However, it is not for the faint, and it is not for those who do not have the bag. And you know what? At the time when we started, we didn't have the big bag. And so we were getting decent returns, but we figured, how do we get more returns, higher returns with what we currently have? And that's when we started to understand that there is this opportunity of doing B2B business versus B2C. So let me describe to you what B2C is. And it's exactly, if you're watching this video and you've ever hosted somebody on Airbnb, well, there's a good chance you're doing B2C. Now, what is B2C? B2C stands for business to consumer. And consumers are people who usually are traveling for leisure, right? They're coming in for a game. They're coming in just for the weekend for a vacation. They're coming in town for a play. They're coming in town to see a football game. They're even coming in for travel sometimes. But at the end of the day, it's still an individual that is booking, right? Now, what is the difference between B to B, and what does it even stand for? Now, let's just take a step back. B is for anybody, which is you who's watching, who has even one property or 12 properties or 100. A good measure of practice, even if you're doing Airbnb as your home as a homeowner, it's good to do it in a LLC, limited liability corporation. If something happens, something falls on the home, not the home. The home doesn't have to be an LLC per se, although it would be a great idea. Most people are not. Typically, it's in their personal name, which is great. However, you should be getting paid by in an LLC. That way, you also get the chance to build your business, receive the funds. But I'm not going to get into this, right? But the reason why I'm showing it to you is because you are in a business. Once you start to have someone lay their hand or lay their head on your pillows, you're officially in business. Why? Because business generate, or good businesses at least, dollars. That's what B stands for. So what you're doing is your business. You are a commercial business officially when you have someone Airbnb in your home. You're serving who? A consumer. So a consumer is coming in and staying at your home and traveling for leisure, which is what most people know. Now, in the world of short-term rentals and mid-term rentals, which is probably why you're watching this, is you have short-term rentals, B2C, Airbnb, which you know very well, traveling for leisure. And then you have MTRs, and you've heard of sites such as like Furnish Finder. So that's also B2C because you're catering to traveling nurses, right? So you have Furnish Finder, traveling nurses, traveling professionals, right? You have even some doctors, but they're still the ones booking on your behalf. Now, on Furnish Finder, people don't book, but you do set up a lease of some kind. But still, this is still B2C. This is B2C, business to consumer. So whether in your midterm rentals or short-term rentals, most people, 90% of people are doing business to consumer. If you're currently getting value from watching this video, you'll want to make sure you take a second and click below to grab the midterm rental insurance blueprint to help accelerate your process in being able to land these midterm rental insurance contracts with respect to your marketplace. Make sure you click the button below and grab it and continue on with the gems in this video. Now, there's a good chance you may have done B2B without even knowing it. And that's when a corporation, right? And there are many corporations, right? You can have a corporation such as construction. You can have a corporation such as even Google, right? They have Airbnb accounts. So if they ever need to relocate a construction crew to work in a specific area and book on their behalf. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put EY here, Ernst Young, right? Just big companies. They do this all the time. They're booking on behalf of their employees, right? And so you're going to have an HR book on behalf. And that is when we're talking about business to business. But that's not even what I'm talking about. I'm saving the best for last. What I'm talking about is even relocation agencies. Relocation agencies, what they will do is they will book homes on behalf of their guests. So instead of the guest booking the actual home, right? So typically, I'll just take a step back here. You got construction, you got Google, Ernst Young, relocation agencies. They're booking on behalf of the guests. On the other side, there's guests or employees or staff, and they're booking on behalf of them. So now what's happening is the business is going to you, who is also operating as a business. Why? Because you're in the business of hospitality. So business to business. That's what that means. Business to business. That's what B2B stands for. Now, why do we like B2B? Well, I'll give you an example. Let's pick the relocation agencies, because guess what? That's what I specialize in, and that's where we make our bread and butter. Doesn't mean you can't make your bread and butter with construction, with tech companies, accounting firms, etc. We make our bang for dollar due to relocation agencies. Now, why do we pick relocation agencies, and why do we focus on these guys and not travel nurses, etc.? And I'll tell you why we focused on them. Right? So a relocation agency is here. Now, the thing is with these relocation agencies is that these relocation agencies have relocation specialists. These relocation specialists do what for a living? They relocate their customers. And where are these? So these are customers. These are relocation specialists, RS, and then they're relocating them on multiple places. Airbnb is certainly one of them. So you may have done this, but maybe by accident without knowing. Furnish Finder might be another. Zillow might be another. And so the reason why we like to focus on doing B2B is because they have volume. As a matter of fact, I've once asked, well, if these relocation agencies are working on behalf, they also have a book of business. So they have a book of business where they might have State Farm. So the State Farm is your SF for State Farm. Then they might have, that's one book of business, right? And then they might have Allstate. I'll put AS for Allstate, right? And then they might have farmers, right? With these firms, all these firms have a bunch of families they need to relocate. Allstate has a bunch of families they need to relocate. Farmers has a bunch of families they need to relocate. And these guys are essentially the gatekeepers because they're working for these companies. They have contracts, big contracts where they're literally catering to these companies. And then where do they go? To small business owners like us, right? Who are on Airbnb, whether we own one, whether we own two, whether we own three, 5, 50, 500, they go to us, those who have the supply. So when there's high demand, this is very important. When there is a high demand, when demand goes up, right? And supply is low, because what happens is there's a lot of people they need to cater to, and therefore the supply by default drops. Then your price, this is economics 101, your price of your listings can increase, right? And this is how, as a matter of fact, our first contract that we landed was $8,000 a month by working with these relocation agencies who are working on behalf of these insurance companies, because we went B2B. Now, the question is, how can you go B2B, and why is this even better? Well, I'll give you a few vantage points, okay? Here's why we like B2B versus B2C. Well, for one thing is B2B has a book of business. What does that mean? It means they literally, what they do for a living is bring in more volume, or have volume that they need to push to properties, which then means if I have a relationship at this company, this is on the B2C side, usually a one-off stay or one night stand, as I like to call it. Our customer here is the relocation agency. The relationship that we build with this person will bring us more business over time, because we're helping the relocation agency. Here, we're helping one client. So I'd rather have a one-to-many relationship, one relationship that brings me many bookings, many families, rather than having one individual one family, right? One family that may not come back ever again. And because I have their contact, if I reach out to them again and be like, will you be coming back? No, we went to the game and it was great, but we're not going to come back for another year. Or maybe, yeah, we came for a conference, but we're not going to come back for another one. Meanwhile, if I were to just even remove the relocation agencies and I think of corporations, right? Tech, be like, how often do you guys have boot camps in this city? Oh yeah, we just had one last month. We have one every quarter. Or we sent one group, but there's going to be a new group. Repeat business. Let me write it in big. Repeat business. Now, another thing that I like about this B2B for relocation agencies is their longer term stays. This is what we call MTR, midterm rental, 30-day plus. These are any average 3 days. So longer for me as an operator means more occupancy, which means more profitability. This is why I want to focus on B2B. If these reasons aren't enough, let me give you one more. Here, what happens every 3 days? Schedule cleaner, communication, maybe one cleaner is sick, right? So let me put that in there. Cleaner. High turnover, right? Here, low turnover. One cleaner per month. If it's a 30-day stay, which typically goes from maybe from 3 to 6 months to 9 months, I still want them to have access to the property to maintain it. But now you can see why very quickly B2B starts looking very juicy. Now, another things to keep in mind, the niche of relocation agencies and insurance companies, they have larger budgets because these families, the alternative, right? These larger families, typically that's who we cater to, a family of 5, 2 dogs, 1 dog, 1 cat. It's actually, we are a discounted product for them because their alternatives are more expensive. See, when you're working B2C, consumers have many options. They can always find a cheaper option, which is, that means now you have two people. If it's 30-day stay, they might be looking for budget friendly. But if they're looking for experience, then they're going to pick the best. And if you're in our position, we were not necessarily the best because we didn't have the means to be the best. And you could have raised capital, you could have done all that. But why do all that when your properties can be functional? Because people are looking for functionality here. Here, they're either looking for an experience, highest top of the line experience, or they're looking for the lowest price. So either you're gonna have all the experiences, all the amenities in the world, which if you're watching this, you probably are not worried about it because you're booked and busy, because you have all the top amenities in the marketplace, or you do not have the amenities in the marketplace and you're struggling on occupancy and profitability, and therefore you've even been priced down because you're trying to lower your prices in hopes that will actually have a shift. When really, if you pick this one and you start serving a different problem, you are not only getting repeat business, but you're getting low turnovers and higher occupancy, and AKA less headaches. And that is why I think the B2B is the best midterm rental strategy you probably are not using. And while you can explore many as like construction, tech, midterm rentals, etc., with B2B instead of B2C, what we like to focus on is relocation companies who are working with displaced families and are working on behalf of the insurance company, because it comes with longer stays, low turnovers, and higher profit margins. If you got value from this video, make sure you check out my video called Revealing the Untold Secrets of Midterm Rentals.